It is the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, it is the Thursday club, although a day early. Let's call it the Wednesday club today because it is fixture release day. Myself and Jack Collins will be looking through Fulham's fixtures for the 25-26 season. The new campaign is here. What is the next 12 or so months gonna look like? We do play every team twice. We have double checks. And I'm here with Jack Collins. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. My favourite day of the year. I'm going to say it.
You love this day.
I live for it. I live for Fixtures Day.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm like a kid. I just don't know why. It's just my... obviously, I don't wait for it all year. But in the week building up to it, I'm just so eager to know.
Fulham in a relegation battle or a promotion push, and you're like, can't wait for fixtures next year. Absolutely loving it, having a good time.
Do you know what? People have got their dream job that they would do in another world.
Yeah.
Some people were like, oh, I'd just like to mow the grass.
Yours is press the button on the fixture machine.
No, I'd like to. Apparently, they take 9 months to put together the fixtures. I could do that job.
I tell you what, that feels like one that AI is going to take.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of chat about AI taking everyone's jobs, and I don't believe a lot of it, but I do believe that this 9 months could be saved by an AI generator. I'm not going to lie.
Damn it. I've just trained for years to get into the fixture scheduling game, and then
the committee.
OpenAI has just nicked my job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, you okay?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm excited to chat this through and see where we get to, and yeah, busy couple of weeks for me.
This is your final pod as a single man.
Yes, indeed, as a bachelor, they say.
Wow.
Yes, I will be married by the next time I come back on Fulhamish, which is quite exciting. So You're not going to see me for a couple of weeks.
Well, I am.
Well, you are, but
yes.
you're not going to hear me for a couple of weeks because I'm going to Portugal at the weekend, and off we go on this journey and this adventure.
Yeah, I did wonder, should we do a Fulhamish pod from Portugal?
From Portugal,
not with you. You might be a bit busy, but the other Fulhamish people that are attending your wedding, should we do a Fulhamish?
Yeah, maybe do it live from the market. It'd be like when we did the one in Liverpool after the Carabao Cup game.
Yeah,
and we were just.
I was thinking kind of post-match analysis, post-wedding analysis.
Yeah, I'd listen.
We could talk about the speech lengths. We could talk about how Jack cried 50 million times.
Yeah. The tactics he employed for the day. Yeah.
Lucy's kind of walk down the aisle, the style, the
Speed,
tactics. Yeah. What kind of different kind of
Gegen pressing down the aisle.
Yeah. Well, anyway, look forward to that. Let's get into the fixtures, Jack, because they are out. They are hot off the press. It's about 9:30 now, and we know that Fulham will start the season with Brighton away, Manchester United at home, Chelsea away, Leeds at home, Brentford at home. We'll start with the start. My initial thought was, that's a tough opening 5. However, I have looked at Opta Analysts' average rating for the first 5 games of the season, and actually we're in the bottom half. So Opta doesn't think it's that tough a start.
So we've got to take a few things into account that aren't going to be included in the numbers here. One is that we just always lose to Man United at home. It just happens. Opta can't count for that. Okay, they have to look at it and be like, United finished below Fulham, comfortably below Fulham in the Premier League last season. They won't look at that as a tricky game. And look, maybe this is the moment we finally kind of just put that to rest. But who knows in terms of that weird little curse that they've got going on over us. I think it's a really interesting start because obviously Brighton broke their own curse against us last year. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of got to the end of that bit. But the first day, sun-drenched, down on the coast, that's a nice opening fixture in some ways. It's difficult, don't get me wrong, and I think that Brighton will come out and start the season hot. But I think that it's the kind of game that you look at and think, got a shot there on opening day. It's not a kind of absolute given. If that was Newcastle away on the final day, and I know we won there last year, but on the first day, I think you'd just be like, no way. But Brighton, I think that that's doable. United, we don't know what they're going to look like come August, so we'll kind of bear that one in mind for the time being. And then you're kind of looking at it and thinking, at the bridge early on, before kind of everyone's settled into their rhythm, how is the Club World Cup going to affect them and what's going on there? We don't know what Leeds are going to look like. And then Brentford's at home under a new manager who's going to be, at the helm at Brentford. So it looks today like it might be Francesco Farioli, which I think is an incredibly annoyingly smart appointment if they do go down that road. But when you kind of look at it like that, when I saw this, so I saw the text in the group chat before I saw the fixtures, and it was like, oh no, everyone's like, and I was like, it's not that bad. Like, it's not great. And also remember that Fulham start fast, right? This is a thing. It's a hallmark of Marco Silva teams that we tend to come out of the blocks pretty explosively. And I think that probably helps us in games like this, where it's not like absolute guarantees. It's not like we're at Anfield away second game. It's not like we're at the Emirates or they're at ours. And I know that we get Arsenal just after this. But in terms of, that start and everyone sort of feeling out where they are for the new season, I think there's opportunities there as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what isn't in here, unlike last, we had Leicester at home first game last year. Yeah. So unlike last year where there was a few games
there's not a banker.
There's no bankers in that, even in the open. I mean, look, you would say Leeds at home, just, I don't think it will be easy, but you would say, like, newly promoted team at home early on in the season is one where you've kind of got to win.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't the fact that it's Brentford and it's a local derby, we would all be thinking, okay, well, that's a mid-table team at home. Again, like, that's fairly kind. I remember on this particular pod last season, we felt like we had quite a nice start, very nice start, other than United away on the first game. But even then, we were excited for that game because it was a possibility that we could win. And whilst we didn't, we weren't wrong with that opinion because we knew that
it could have gone either way that game.
Yeah, but we almost felt like there was quite a lot of pressure on Fulham in the opening games, that if we didn't get the results in the opening kind of 6-7, then Fulham were in for a world of pain. Now,
it was a quite tricky October and November on paper, wasn't it?
Yeah, whereas now I think this one is where I'm like, look, the reason why it's tough, right, is because there's two, inverted commas, old big four teams in the opening three, right? That's why you look at it and you go, well, Brighton is a really tough game, no matter, going away to the Amex, and then Man United and Chelsea. Historically, those are three very, very difficult fixtures. I think when you add context to it, it's not too bad.
In terms of the season as a whole, and I think you can probably apply this to the start and then kind of take it onwards from there, it feels a little bit less streaky than last year, I think. Last year, it felt like there was like, there's 3 games in a row you could win. And look, famously, we didn't. But like, there are 3 games that are kind of winnable in a row. And then you're like, that's a really tough block of fixtures. This feels a little bit more like, okay, winnable, difficult. And it kind of like oscillates, shall we say, throughout the season. And so like, there was someone saying right at the end, we'll move on to the end, right? Like the run-in being Arsenal away, then Bournemouth at home, then Wolves away, then Newcastle at home. And you're looking at it and be like, that is a tricky run-in, like on paper, but it's also not like impossible either. And you kind of look at it and think, well, Newcastle at home, final day, are they going to be playing for anything? ? Etc. Bournemouth and Wolves, you'd imagine that they will be mid-table, especially that Bournemouth have been kind of stripped back a little bit this summer by people looking at buying all of their players. I think that's the kind of the bit we haven't got to yet. Like, we don't know where Bournemouth and Wolves are going to be. I'd imagine that Arsenal and Newcastle are going to be involved within, if not a title race, then a top 4 race at the very least. But where Bournemouth and Wolves are could be very different to where they were last season at that point in the campaign. And I think that's kind of one of those things that you look at and say, Bournemouth at home with 3 games to go, they had a real fall off towards the end of the season, right? They ended up having that kind of drop back in the table, and as did we, right? But like, they weren't the force that they were in January by the time it came to May. And like, those are the kind of nuances that you don't understand until you're actually much later in the campaign. Yeah, and it's really hard to know exactly what that run-in looks like. I always think trying to predict, we've got a particularly tough run-in. April's quite hard. Yes. Liverpool away, Brentford away, and then Aston Villa at home. Like, that's a tricky month. Yeah, because like last season, you'd have said, all right, well, Everton at home's the banker during the run-in. And actually, famously, that was like one of the least. That was one of the worst results we had. So it's very, very hard. I always think, whenever you see people say, "Oh my God, the run-in's horrendous," like, I often kind of think, maybe it could be horrendous. It's also like, it's not horrendous if you're 10th. Yeah, like, it's only horrendous if you're 17th. Like, that's like the no run-in is horrendous if you're mid-table. Yeah, like that's where I kind of look at it, and so. So I think that the run-in is a slightly different question, but I do think generally my thoughts on the season were more kind of, wow, that's a little bit more up and down than it was last year, where it felt quite like, okay, there's a block of fixtures there, then a block of fixtures there. This feels a bit more kind of, as take them as you go. I mean, 2 very early derbies, I think, is the interesting here. Both
both kind of West London derbies in the first 5 games. Chelsea on August. I don't think that's the bank holiday weekend actually, but it's still kind of like a last weekend of August. Last weekend of August, and then obviously you got
the bank holidays the week before.
Yeah, and then you've obviously got Brentford on the 20th. I thought interesting that there's no Boxing Day game scheduled. We're playing on the 27th, West Ham away. I don't 100% know why. I don't know if the rest of the league hasn't got a box. I know the reason. I just suddenly twigged what the reason is. West Ham don't play at home on Boxing Day because of Westfield.
Correct. There you go.
I mean, personally, I've never been a lover of Boxing Day. Personally, I struggled to get to Boxing Day games. How do we feel about that Christmas period, though? You've got 2 kind of London derbies in there: West Ham away, Crystal Palace away, then Liverpool at home, and then Chelsea home is a midweek, which I thought was quite fun.
Under the lights, bring back Carlos Vinicius for 1 game on loan in the January window. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, again, it is interesting. The 27th game, it being the 27th, I think opens it up for more people to go.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that element of it. I think I quite like a Boxing Day game, especially when it's in London. I quite enjoy that kind of getting out and doing it. But being on the 27th, I think it means that more people will be able to go. I think that's a good thing from our perspective. And that it's somewhere that you can get to. You know, I have my own gripes and qualms with the London Stadium, right? But
yeah,
when it comes to actually being in attendance, I think that it being on the 27th is probably a bonus for a lot of people. I mean, then you get, you know, Palace away on the kind of New Year's game, if you will, on the 30th, which, I mean, is always a bit of a trek. Our record at Selhurst's all right. So I think that people will be kind of up for those 2 back-to-back London derbies at that point. And especially if we're going well at that point in the campaign, Forest at home being the last game before Christmas is quite a nice touch as well. So I'm actually quite pleased with that. And, you know, then we obviously have the 13th of December, which is potentially Scott Parker's Burnley away. I mean, whether he'll still be in a job at that point is a different question. But Scott Parker's Burnley away from home could be very interesting.
Well, it's kind of like, for me, one of the final curses. Marco Silva has been the curse killer at Fulham. I mean, he hasn't won a trophy. That is the ultimate curse. But, you know, when you think about, we haven't beaten this team at this ground, he's got rid of so many of them in recent years, but Turf Moor is the remaining one. We came so close with Marco Silva, who went 2-0 up against Burnley 2 seasons ago, so maybe that is the one that a lot of people have got their eye on. I know a
few Benny and Hearts.
Yeah, I know Tom Greatrex, the kind of former chair of the FSAs, has a real big personal thing that he will go to every Burnley away game until the curse is broken. So
yeah, maybe you should stop going.
Maybe, yeah. Like, Tom, take a season off.
This is the one, Tom. Let's have a rest. Let's go and win at Burnley.
But yeah, hopefully that this year is when the curse is broken. Was there anything else that massively kind of stood out to you on the fixture list that you thought was particularly interesting?
No, not hugely. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how those, you know, opening 5 games go. And I do agree with you that having 2 derbies in the first 5 is kind of wild. It also means that everyone's not completely set. I think often at the start of the season, you're getting kind of teams working it out early doors and trying to kind of work out exactly who's where. We don't know what the Club World Cup is going to be, as I said earlier, and how that's going to affect teams that are in it. I would have liked to have a couple more of the Club World Cup teams early on to see if you could get into them and get stuck into them with that lack of a pre-season that they're going to have. It feels like, you know, I was talking to a Chelsea correspondent on the radio yesterday, and he was basically like, they're going to do the Club World Cup, then they're going to take 4 weeks off pretty much as other people go back into pre-season. They're playing 2 games and then straight into the Premier League season. I was like, that feels risky. He was like, yeah, 100% it does. So, you know, maybe that Chelsea game early on, 3rd game of the season, could be an opportunity as much as anything else.
Yeah, and maybe, I guess, a bit of a shame they're not playing Man City until December, when you'd imagine they'll be more than back into the swing of things.
I think City are going to be okay.
Both City games, interestingly, midweek. So yeah, the one that's mid-February, midweek is definitely feel like there's always one fixture in the calendar which you look at and go like, ooh, that's a tough little trip just for fans to get to. And I'd say that the Man City one in February midweek is one where I'm not 100% sure Fulham will sell out the allocation.
I am very much looking forward to going to Sunderland away on the 21st of February.
Okay, yeah.
That one was one that I was like, what am I looking for? I'm looking for Sunderland away. I'm looking forward to going back to the stadium and the reunion with Paddy Roberts, all of it.
I'm quite relieved on a similar note that Newcastle for once away is not in January, because it feels like constantly you're just like, oh, why is it just at the time of year where I don't really feel like getting on a train and going to Newcastle. Late October, however, that feels a little bit more
last of the summer sunshine.
Yeah, a little bit more fun. Well, look, they are the fixtures. I'm sure we could have gone through all of them in immense detail. I did actually have one more point, which I thought was interesting, is obviously AFCON this year.
Yes.
And we know that AFCON really hurt our momentum 2 seasons ago, with Iwobi and Bassey both going. Looks like kind of the Liverpool, Chelsea, maybe even the tail end of those festive games against West Ham and Crystal Palace will be when they're missing. So
it depends when it starts, because that oscillates sometimes. Sometimes you get the kind of very much start of January ones, and then I think the last time was a little bit later.
I think this is I think it is the start of January.
Right. Okay.
The only advantage I guess you can say is probably no Mo Salah.
Yeah, exactly.
For the Liverpool game. So swings and roundabouts. But yeah, one to keep an eye on. Elsewhere in Fulham news, speaking of an AFCON player, Calvin Bassey awarded the club player of the season, which is what we predicted. Well, what I predicted all the way back in the summer.
Yes, well done.
But what also we predicted on last week's pod as well.
Yeah, Mr. Consistency, wasn't he, in many ways this year?
A deserved award, I think.
I think so too. I think that you could have made a case for a couple of players, but generally I think that Calvin Bassey has been absolutely rock solid. The games where he hasn't played, I mean, I think Cuenca did really well in that Liverpool game, obviously, but when you kind of look back and you think, who's a player that you want to see on the team sheet every week? He was the guy for me. And look, we saw games where it went to a 3 at the back. We saw that switch of formation. He was integral to all of it. It didn't matter what system Marco Silva was playing. Calvin Bassey was the player that he looked to. And I think that, you said it earlier on, that maybe Calvin Bassey, we might only get one more year of him if he continues at this level, because someone is going to take a look at that and be like, that's a player that I want in my team, in terms of the ability to recover, the pace he has, but also that just calmness in terms of when a player's beyond him, being able to just back himself to get back there, and his reading of the game in that regard I think is exceptional. The ability to drive forward with the ball, we saw this a little bit when he was playing, especially when he was playing in that kind of 3 at the back system. I think he's turning into a really, really complete player, and it was a well-deserved award, I think.
Yeah, and I think also, as many people have pointed out, player of the season, Bassey was the most consistent.
Yeah.
Robinson and Iwobi, Raul all had their moments this season where they deserved to potentially be up for a nomination, but over the season, I think Bassey. Look, I don't think Bassey's quite there yet. I think that he did make errors that led to goals this season.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fulham did not keep many clean sheets, and he was a part of that defensive line. But Bassey just stood out as well. And sometimes, okay, maybe the stats might not prove that Bassey was our best player, but certainly I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching Calvin Bassey this season. The marauding runs, the big tackles, the kind of fun and energy as well that he brings to this team. You can tell that he's a real central core of
morale in the dressing room.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it at the end. When Kearney had that moment against Brentford, it was Bassey and Iwobi that put Kearney on their shoulders to kind of celebrate with the fans. It just feels like Calvin is a real central focus, and
100%.
And the 2 goals that he did score that I remember, United away and obviously Forest at home, the celebrations, the joy that he exudes.
They were big goals in some of the biggest games of the campaign as well. Obviously the United one, but I maintain that the Forest game was our best performance over the course of a season. I still think that was the best that we played over 90 minutes for the entirety of the season. And then you're kind of looking at that and thinking, okay, fair enough. That's the moment, right?
Yeah. And then Harry Wilson won the official club goal of the season.
Which one?
The flick against Brentford at home. He was obviously
I would have given Harry Wilson 1, 2 and 3.
He could have. He had legitimate.
Maybe 3 is a bit harsh, but definitely 1 and 2, because I think the goal against Brentford away is arguably better. Obviously the ridiculousness of the goal that he scores at the Cottage is incredible, and the audacity to even try that is ludicrous. But in terms of just the way he strikes that, keeper stranded, stood rock solid, cannot move a muscle as it curls into the corner. You're like, That's a really, really good goal. A really good goal. And as much as and look, there's always an element of this when you score like an acrobatic goal. There's always an element of luck in it, right? And the fact that it drops into that corner in the same kind of looping arc that Clint Dempsey's did, I think didn't help. It didn't hurt him in terms of winning this. But this also won Gary Neville's goal of the season on Monday Night Football.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he voted for Harry Wilson's goal against
It's one
Brentford.
of those that it feels like, from an outside perspective, has got better with age. Because I remember being quite annoyed it didn't make Match of the Day's Goal of the Month competition. And even maybe at the time, I think I was like, was that a bit of luck? But I think you watch it back now and realise that even if it was obviously an element
There's
of
obviously
luck,
an element of luck because your back's to goal. You're flicking the ball like kind of towards the goal.
He was trying to do something which makes it more than like a mishit cross. It wasn't a mishit cross.
No.
It wasn't something that he intended it to go in the direction of the goal, whether it was for the keeper to save it, for it to hit the bar, for it to maybe fall to another player to flick it on. But he tried to get it towards goal. Therefore, I think it is a valid...
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it won Gary Neville's goal of the season on Monday Night Football.
Oh, G Nev's gone up in my estimation.
Yeah, I mean, he also then was like, I forgot about Karen Matoma's goal against Chelsea. So it was maybe a little bit of like hidden praise. But he was talking about, I like to pick goals that are slightly different. The only other goal that actually maybe should have been in there was the Andreas goal against Man City, just for the Raul assist.
Just for the Raul assist, yeah. And when the Fulham players were asked about goal of the season, a few did say, the Andreas goal against... I think Andreas actually said it. He said, my goal...
But we'll split it in half.
I'll split it in half and give it to Raul.
Nice.
I actually did see that the Premier League did put an assist of the season compilation together, and I watched all of them because it was actually a really fun, almost more fun watching the assist of the season compilation than the goal of the season compilation, because some of them are just like, really spine-tingling. I still think Raul's won. If there was an assist of the season in the Premier League, there were some fantastic ones in there, don't get me wrong, but I still just think Raul's against City was just the pinnacle.
Unofficial award from us.
Yeah, we'll give it to you. All right, we'll take a break there. Afterwards, we've got a shirt to give away, and also we'll round up some of the Fulham players on international duty. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here with Jack Collins on the Thursday Club. Wednesday Club today. We're a day early.
We've done a couple of Friday clubs this season. This is the first Wednesday club, I think.
It is the only flaw in the name.
Yeah.
Because if we do have to change the day, then it just sounds a bit stupid to release Thursday Club on a Wednesday. But it's stuck. People know what it is.
I like it.
Yeah. Right. We have been giving away a signed shirt. We've been raising money for the Fulham Foundation. And today is the day where we announce who has won it. And... can I just say, we've raised 1,500 quid.
Incredible.
Thank you so much for all your donations. 73 donations totaling £1,500. Some people have been incredibly generous on this. Obviously, we know that there's an element of like maybe one or two of you are going to win a prize right now, but I know that you all entered this knowing that probably unlikely to win. So thank you. It will make such a difference to the Fulham Foundation.
Yeah.
1,500 quid is an amazing amount of money, and I know that the foundation are always very grateful when we do these giveaways. So thank you for donating. It's incredibly generous, particularly when times and money is tight. So we've got 2 prizes to give away. So we've got our second prize, which we didn't announce, but we've been given a few of these, and we definitely want to give it away. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this, which is a Fulham Football Club history map. I'm going to put it close to the camera here for people to see on YouTube. There we go. Basically, it's resembling the tube map, with lots of Fulham players down the years, and each line is kind of like a famous Fulham team. So you've got the 75 FA Cup team all the way to the team that won at Man United on penalties in 2025, and then the players that overlap are kind of like connectors. Anyway, we were given this by the wonderful Chris Lee, who is selling them on his futbalartist.weebly.com. We'll put a link in the description. That's our second prize that we're going to give to someone now. So we've got a random number generator. Before you all think that we're making this up, it's on my laptop on a spreadsheet here. So everyone that entered is on this spreadsheet. There are some anonymous here, but we've got their email addresses. So are we ready, Jack?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. So winner of the tube map is number 60. That is Ian Robertshaw. Okay, Ian, we've got your email address. We'll get in touch. A tube map is coming your way.
Exciting.
Congratulations, Ian. But the top prize, and drum roll please, it is the Fulham signed shirt that has been on our wall, signed by all of the, well, certainly a large number of the 24-25 squad. And who is going to win it? It is number 24. I believe this might be an anonymous one.
No.
Yes. Okay, we've got an anonymous winner here, but we have their email address. I assumed they wanted to stay anonymous for a reason, but we have their email address. You've won it. Well done. That's a bit of an anticlimax to give it to an anonymous winner, but they've said they're anonymous, so they will remain anonymous. Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Check your emails, I think, is the most important thing to say. If you we'll get in touch. But yes, that is the jaw done. Thank you again to Nina and to Abdul for providing us this shirt. Obviously, we know that is a big driver for people to donate. £1,500 going the way of the Fulham Foundation. Thank you to everyone who got in touch. It is hugely appreciated. Jack, a few players on international duty. Hot off the press, though, Josh King scored for England under-19s against Germany under-19s. An absolutely balmy game.
It was one of the weirdest games I've ever watched. Like, absolutely bizarre.
So a 5-5 draw, but England were 5-1 down at the start of the second half.
Yeah.
And then came back to draw 5-5. Josh King's goal actually wasn't part of the comeback.
It was the one.
It was the one initially. Obviously, a crazy game for Josh to be a part of, but just great to see him also getting a little bit of match time and also getting on the score sheet in what's going to go down as a bit of an iconic England game.
Yeah, I thought he played quite well. Very much kind of knitting things together in the centre of the park. Like, I think that what we're seeing from him developing with this team, and there's a lot of names in here of players that are being talked very highly about at clubs. So being part of that team and seeing him kind of leading it and being a key figure in the creative elements of it, I think is a really good thing for him going forward. So yeah, shouts out to Josh. I thought he did well for his time on the pitch here, and it was, as you say, an absolutely nuts game of football. It was kind of watching at the same time as being on the radio yesterday, and I was like, there is a really bizarre game of football going on here, lads. It's all a bit all over the place. So I was enjoying it.
And then over in the Gold Cup, a couple of Fulham outings. Last night, Luke de Fougerolles played in Canada's pretty thumping win. Just great to see him getting more minutes.
Yeah, this was really late, so I didn't watch it live. We watched it back this morning, so I've got to talk about it later anyway. So he did really well, I thought. Again, he played about 60-odd minutes before he was replaced by Kamal Miller. And just looked really sort of, look, Canada looked brilliant. And this was going to be a tricky test against Honduras, who are not kind of a walkover side in this competition, who've caused people problems before, and they absolutely annihilated them. But his ability to take the ball out of the back, to spread play, to utilize it, he wasn't tested hugely defensively here, so let's be honest in that regard. It's not kind of one of those that you look at and think, okay, we've learned loads about his defensive aspects, etc. But I watched it back, or the extended highlights of it back this morning, and the way that he kind of moves the ball around is very smart. The players seem to trust him around him. And I was reading some articles from Canadian journalists, etc., talking about the team, and they're all very comfortable with him being at the heart of that back line. And I think that's a great sign for someone so young. Yeah,
and Raul on score sheets for Mexico as well. Nice goal.
Yes, good goal. I thought that it was... Mexico were unconvincing. It was a 3-2 win. It wasn't quite as difficult as maybe that scoreline sounds, but they don't feel like they're completely there. What I did think was interesting about this is that Raul played in a front two with Santi Jimenez and scored a goal. And I wonder if there is something in that at some point that we can utilise, that strike partnership, that pairing that allowed him to kind of build with Santi. The two Jimenezes up front was always quite a nice touch, spelt differently obviously, but they worked quite nicely in tandem, I thought, when opportunities did arise, and yeah, he took his goal really nicely.
Also, obviously, we discussed this a lot last week, but Thomas Frank's appointment at Spurs is confirmed. And I thought quite interesting now, at the point that Marco finds himself in terms of Premier League managers and their longevity at each club. Marco Silva now the third longest serving manager in the Premier League.
Behind Mikel and Pep?
Yeah, so Mikel has done 5 years and 5 months at Arsenal. Pep Guardiola now coming up to 9 years at Manchester City. But obviously Marco now basically at 4 years for Fulham. Eddie Howe is the closest, a few months behind Marco Silva. Behind that, he's a good year and a bit ahead of Unai Emery, who's in 5th. I think this is really interesting times, Jack, because I can't remember a Fulham manager in my lifetime to have stayed at the club this long. I just wonder that with also what we're seeing, that we've not got many transfer rumours to discuss. And obviously we all want a few players to come in, and Fulham always leave players late. There hasn't been a huge amount of outgoing rumours. Just starting to get, quietly optimistic that just the stability at Fulham is going to serve us really, really well this season. The stability of Marco, the stability, it seems like, of the majority of our squad. Look, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a big player leaves and a bid comes in and we have to kind of like find a few new positions. But it's got to be one of the most stable summers that I remember in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, look, we released that clip, obviously, the last couple of days of being like, this feels like a big summer in terms of making that next step. But I think you're right in terms of it feels like it's on solid foundations. And that's an attractive thing, I think, for a player to come into. If a player is looking at what's happening and looking at clubs and going, there's turmoil and turnover constantly, and, it could be a new manager next season. And look, obviously that doesn't necessarily apply to the biggest clubs because players are just going to want to play for them. But in terms of, you're seeing, if you're a player now looking at, let's say, Bournemouth and Fulham, right? And look, I think Iraola is a brilliant manager. And I think that a lot of players would want to play for him. But if you're looking at it and thinking, well, they've just lost Heisen, they're going to lose Zabani to PSG. Semenyo's on the radar of a couple of big clubs. There's a few more kind of interested in someone like a Justin Kluivert. Kerkez is leaving. You're kind of looking at it as...
Kepa gone as well?
Yeah, Kepa's gone. So that's going to be interesting to see what that is. It looks like he might turn up at Arsenal, which would be quite amusing as their backup goalkeeper. Yeah. But in terms of if you're looking at joining that squad, one, there's opportunities to go and establish yourself. So I do appreciate that. But you're also I don't know if they're going to be anywhere near what they were last season. When you look at Fulham, you're like, the chances are they're not going to be miles off where they were. Yeah. Right. And look, maybe that's a good and a bad thing in terms of, does it mean that Fulham are limited in terms of what they can do if the turnover's not loads there and there's not players coming in and going around? But I think that generally from a kind of, if you're a player, and especially the kind of players that Marco Silva likes, who tend to be a little bit older, who and I'm hoping that we continue to make the squad younger. I think that there is a space here, and I've said it before, that we need to be able to actually turn over some players and generate a profit. I think that's an important thing of how clubs operate. But in terms of, if you're looking at a 28-year-old who's, maybe not had the career that they perfectly wanted, who's been dropped out, we've taken those big 6 cast-offs, in inverted commas, before, then Fulham feels like a very safe place to be at the moment with Marco Silva there in the squad as it is right now. And I think that that's going to be attractive to a certain type of player.
Yeah, and interestingly, I noted the picture of Emil Smith-Rowe, which he put on his Instagram, of him doing pre-season training at some kind of like performance camp in Mykonos. So is this the ESR renaissance that is this the start of something special, Jack?
Well, I mean, just to counter that, I also saw a picture of Emil Smith-Rowe out at a nightclub and a night called Booze and Boobs.
No.
So
okay.
So I'm not 100% sure he's
one hand giveth, the other hand taketh, kind of.
There we go.
This is amazing. Okay, fair enough.
So there you go.
Look,
Mr. Man of the people.
Showing this to Liz, who's on the buttons as well. It's a great. I mean, it's one hell of a name for a night.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it does what it says in the tin, but
well, yeah,
he seems to be having a good time. So fair play.
And also, Jack, I thought one final thing that I had to talk about today is that I think the Riverside launch is this weekend. Which...
It is. I'm really sad I can't go to this. Like, it's the Fulham Pier launch, isn't it, as opposed to the Riverside launch. But I was thinking about it, and there's a free gig by Example. Now, I know Example's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm a big Example fan. And he's a really nice geezer as well.
And Fulham fan.
I was thinking about this, and he's doing this free gig on the pier, basically at Craven Cottage. I was like, this is our Sam Fender at St James's Park. I was like, really sad that I can't. Like, that's the kind of gig you can go to in a Fulham shirt, like, and actually be like, cool, this is it. This is what we're doing. And I'm really sad I can't make it.
This is our Fat Boy Slim at the Amex.
Yes, exactly. This was it. I'm gutted.
But yeah, it's exciting to see what's going on there. I mean, like, I don't know if anyone's walked down the river, but there's now kind of like art installations all down it. It's starting to take shape. It's looking quite exciting, and they're obviously trying to market it as a real kind of like non-football place, which, you know, we've talked about the pros and cons of that, but yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see what happens post launch, which I believe is on Friday. I think it's all weekend as far as I understand, around Friday to Sunday. So yeah, watch this space on the pier.
If anyone's at the Example gig, please send me pictures in Fulham shirts. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, well, that will do for Fulhamish today. Our impromptu little fixture reaction. Jack Collins, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, Sammy. It's all going to be great. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, exciting times. Thank you for having me.
Fulhamish will be back early next week. The Jack and Joe show going to be reconvening with no doubt their reaction to all the fixtures, probably with a little bit more detail, given that they've got a bit more time to absorb all the fixtures, and hopefully a few transfer rumours for them to chew over, because it's a little bit dry out there right now.
All quiet on the Western Front, as they say.
Hopefully Jack and Joe have got a little bit more to ponder early next week, and then we will have a Thursday Club next week, back on Thursday as well. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Well done to our winners, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous for the shirt, and also the winner of the tube map. I think it was Ian. So yeah, thanks very much for getting involved in the show today. You Whites.
You Whites.